Okay, welcome back to Daily Inbox Tips. My guest today, Thomas Rudy. Thomas, give us a quick introduction to your background, what you're into, and then we'll hop into a little bit more deep dive discussion.
Well, yeah. So Thomas Shirdy, co-founder of Data Shopper, a company that was born out of this group called Print Buy and Ship, which is a pretty large 3PL commercial printer in the Midwest. My history is really just all things performance marketing. Starting off in the early days, I think I tell this story a lot, but I did a lot of like eBay arbitrage, which got me into the internet. And then, a lot of like the local SEO, more national SEO. I was a GM for reviews.com,
Hmm.
um, built and sold a number of different affiliate sites. Spent some time as a software developer too. So I guess most prominently worked at Microsoft in the Xbox Studios gaming division. And the last 10 years or so, I had a performance marketing agency that was mostly predicated towards the financial service world
Okay.
or fintech companies. So I had a number of different clients, pretty decent sized book of business. Maybe the most prominent client was a group called Benzinga. We really helped scale them from,
Oh, wow.
like a mid-sized company to what they ended up selling for about 300 million. And my
Oh, wow.
business line at its peak was doing about 2 million a month. Um, and then, yeah, more recently, really in the last like three years or so, I started working more closely with Print Vine Ship, who was a client of mine after I exited my agency. And that's kind of the really like 15-year synopsis of where my career went. And now Data Shopper is a primary focus of what I'm building, growing, um, trying to take it to new heights, new levels.
Okay. And so 3PL, I've worked with them in the past. Obviously, I'm somewhat not in the space, but work with them, so I know a little bit about it. But people who don't, what do 3PLs do and kind of how do they work?
Yeah, so third-party logistics, they're a smaller Amazon, if you will. So companies will use them to, store product, do order fulfillment, do warehousing. Print, buy, and ship is a little bit unique too because they also have a commercial printing arm to them. So a lot of the manufacturing of the packaging or things that are done on demand like books or booklets or direct mail, which is kind of like how Data Shopper was first originated. All those things are done under one roof. So usually you'd have to go to like you'd have to go to a manufacturer to print XYZ type materials for your product and then ship it to the warehouse and then the fulfillment would do that. So print buy and ship is a little bit unique because they handle all of that under one roof. um, and yeah, I mean they're a pretty big business, ship everywhere in the world. I guess maybe one of the more prominent groups in that world is a group like ShipBob or Red Stag Fulfillment, but Print Buy and Ship isn't too far behind some of those groups. Um,
Nice.
yeah,
Okay, so on Data Shopper, it's datashopper.com. I'll link to this for everyone to go check out. But it says retarget anonymous website traffic effortlessly. Now, I think of like pixels and stuff like that. Is that kind of what you guys are doing, or is there more advanced stuff that you're into? How are y'all doing that?
yeah. So I mean, it is a pixel that you place on a site. It does a number of things as it relates to how you can retarget, but at its core, what it's doing is it's matching an individual's hashed information in the browser against our data set, and then from there our customers will usually do one of three things. They'll send direct mail, which is kind of how all this got started a few years back.
Mm,
They'll do some sort of like email sequencing or sales calling, depending on the use case of the product. So, for instance, like if it's a B2B account, they can smile and dial some of those folks. Or another really common use case is they'll take all that data and then feed it into, um, the different audience builders that you can have in, like a Google Ads or a Meta account to retarget the very, very, very specific individuals that are coming to your site and meet a certain criteria. So we don't just, we don't match everybody. So as a, for instance, just this morning I was doing some filtering for one of our customers, a pretty prominent brokerage in the United States, and they have a myriad of different data points for what needs to fall into their ICP to actually you know make it so that the prospect is legitimate for them to want to retarget.
Right.
So we handle that all in one seamless, effort in our platform. So if you need somebody to have, a net worth of 500K and up, or a certain income, or meet a certain demographic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we can partition that so the prospect is, meets that criteria, and then it's delivered to, the customer, and then from there is remarketed in most commonly one of those three forms that I just said.
So if I was, I'm not in the, I'm not able to buy a yacht. So, but if I stumbled upon a yacht website, what your site would then do is figure out that I'm actually just someone looking up yachts for whatever reason, but I'm not really a good candidate for them to retarget marketing or have a sales call with or anything like that, and kind of eliminate me from the pool of their prospects that they would go and try to close as a client or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton of ways that you can really filter it down. Some of the more simple ones like page path. So, for instance, we have a lot of home service companies, and for the most part, home service companies get pretty qualified traffic. It's local SEO. It's people actually looking to hire a group that, does XYZ service. But in a lot of instances too, those groups will have like a random blog that their SEO company wrote that gets like, 5,000 visits a month. That's, what's the best way to hang a picture or something. Um, so you want to remove that traffic, right? Like it's traffic, but it's not traffic that's actually going to be a customer. So that's a simple way. You can do like UTM parameters, geo filters with zip or state. We also have blacklist filters, so you could upload either like the plain text or hash version of your customers' emails or your employees' emails, depending on how big the org is. Or I guess everyone should do it, but and then yeah, like if we're talking home service too, like we have a few different remodeling groups. One of them is a basement remodeler. So if the if the anonymous user that we identify, is matched, do they have a basement, right? So like, are you going to be able to sell this person something if they're living in an apartment? So we get really specific and drill down into, as close as possible to what the ICP of that user is. And there's different ways you can kind of like benchmark the quality of the traffic too. If it's coming from SEO or if it's coming from paid. Usually those are some of the better sources, depending on what the content is that they're consuming. So yeah, there's a pretty substantial way that you can really refine the cohorts that you're going after and try to maximize. Um, every dollar that goes out, you want to get back X amount, right? So we really try to refine and filter to make sure that there's not, you know, waste on something like how to hang a picture on your wall. Um,
Right. Well,
yep.
and that's one of the things I'll see a lot is you got this tool, get your pixel, put it here, and you kind of start tracking that stuff. But I've often wondered, okay, I can go through and do that stuff, but if I don't have the traffic, will I get bad leads? Will I get stuff that I'm just wasting time chasing on stuff that came from somewhere? Me looking at yachts, just I'm curious, whatever it might be. It's not really valuable for me. And so, at what point is it website traffic? Is it revenue? Like, at what point do you advise people to get serious about this kind of pixel on their from the various traffic sources to make sure that they're chasing the right leads?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a lot of traffic, um, honestly, it's probably not the greatest fit. We do have some businesses that we work with where we're helping them engineer traffic to, most commonly these days, with paid. So we're, helping run and set up their paid campaigns so they're getting valuable traffic that, obviously we want it to convert to, but then use our technology as a leg up in that service. Um, but I think one of the simplest entries is if you are spending any sort of significant budget, especially on Google Ads, and you're targeting keywords that have intent, you're going to convert whatever percent of those, like 4% if you're really, really rocking, but 1 to 2% of those customers or leads, however you want to phrase it. That's a really easy mechanism to, insure against your ads. If you're, in some of these groups, you're spending 10, 15, 20, sometimes more dollars a click. You can spend a few pennies more, and know who that person is and then retarget them and, retarget someone that has shown intent via some sort of specific search.
Mhm.
So it definitely does depend on the group. It definitely does depend on, um, how much traffic's coming to the site, how quality the traffic is. There's definitely like a lot of misconceptions of, Well, I have 10,000 visitors to my site, but maybe it's coming from, a forum post that has no bearing on customers. So
Right.
you got to be a little bit tactical with how you approach it for sure. Otherwise, it's not going to work out if it's bad traffic for sure. So the easiest way to roundabout that is to engineer a new traffic source that has quality, and the fastest way to do that is, paid advertising most commonly.
Yeah. So I have, say I have a blog or a website or whatever you want to call it, that I'm writing content for, putting it out there. Is the next step. I'm going to, start the pixel process. The next step is to run those paid ads, or is it? I think you mentioned even direct mail. Can you go through like direct mail with this, where someone visits your site, and if you have a home service like a roofing business or whatever, you can send them a direct mailer? Like, what's the next best step to take if you kind of have a site that's having decent traffic and you're somewhat sophisticated in Google Analytics, you can kind of tell, it's kind of local traffic, whatever. What's the next best step to do?
Yeah. So I mean, the direct mail is how all this started. At first, it was just like a location opt-in that we would send direct mail, and it was really just like a spreadsheet. It wasn't even a product yet. So that's the easiest one. So now we send a lot of direct mail. If the prospect meets the certain criteria in ICP, that goes out the next morning. Every single day it gets printed. We send letters, brochures, obviously postcards, booklets. That's a really easy one. It's automated in how we handle it now. Um, and in the home service world, it usually works really well, especially if there's like a high end ticket item. Direct mail is pretty cheap. Um, so you really just got to get like a customer off of, a moderate amount of spend, and you're rocking. But yeah, that's one of the easiest ones. That's how it all started. And then depending on the group, I mean, if you're using Data Shopper, we don't necessarily charge you anymore to use the data how you see fit. So you can take that data and, build lookalike audiences, do some sort of like outbound sequencing, again, depending on how the group's set up and what the compliance is. It's up to the group. Sometimes we help, like set those things up or give different playbooks. Um, but really, like the data is so comprehensive. There's a lot of ways that you can use it. I think with some of our enterprise clients, it gets pretty in the weeds. But for your average home service client, like a roofer, a remodeler, or kitchen, bathroom, etc., we handle basically the entire start to finish process of getting marketing out to the folks that um, meet their criteria. And even furthermore, too, I mean, we have a lot of intent data too. So, um, if someone has shown interest in putting a new roof on their house in a certain geo, we can also curate a lot of lists that don't necessarily have to be attached to the pixel. And then again, you can do the same thing. Um, you can send direct mail. You can, run ads against that audience and all their different devices. So there's a lot that can be done, but the way that this product started out and the way that we service a lot of our customers is meet the ICP of a prospect that comes to your site, and then direct mail goes out to the individual next day, or 48 hours at most if it's over the weekend.
Yeah. I was reading this book, Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins, and he talks about, back then it was like 1922 or whatever he wrote the book, and all they had was direct mail, obviously. And he talks about back then they would send out, a direct mailer and then a coupon you could cut off, which we see today. And the reason was so that if you got the mailer and you didn't want to buy the whatever it was, the roof or the remodel or the, whatever it was, you cut the coupon off, and then when you wanted to buy it, you would remember that it was there. And I think that social media has kind of made us forget that it's really hard to get people to remember you. Like when they go to buy something, they'd remember you. And so if you have a tool that, yeah, this person visited the site or they're looking for a roof or whatever, and then they get the mailer in, it's a different way that you're going to ping them. Maybe they buy, maybe they don't. That's always the question. There's questions of copy and stuff like that. But it's, man, like going through that book was a great reminder of just how hard it is to get people to come to you, to call you when they need you, because out of sight, out of mind. And so this is a great way to say, hey, you don't know who's looking for what, but when they are, because we all think right now, like if when I get off this podcast, my phone's listening, so it wouldn't surprise me to see ads for Data Shopper or something like Data Shopper on my feed, and I go, oh yeah, that's because I talked to Thomas, and so there it is. But if I got a mailer in tomorrow, I probably would forget. I wouldn't even connect that. I wouldn't think, oh, the phone was listening and the Pixel, and I visited his website and it mailed it. And so it's really weird how we've kind of negated that fact because of content stuff. We kind of think, oh, everyone remembers what I say, everyone remembers what I do, and they just don't. And so it's a great way to always stay in front of who your ICP is.
Yeah, and your point to like the coupon or the cutout, whatever it is on the collateral on the piece of direct mail, um, is super important too, right? Like you mentioned, it's copy in different ways that you can, try to sell your product. The offer's got to be good, right? Um, and there are some really interesting things that we're doing to help, you know, you know, sh- make sure that customers remember you. So, for instance, one of our offerings now from a standpoint is the handwritten letters. So we have a
Mm,
machine that actually writes the letters out. So, it looks like you're getting a letter from your grandma on your birthday or something like that. You're
right.
more inclined to open it. And then it can have a little insert, depends on, what the customer wants. We can have like a coupon or whatever. So there's ways to make direct mail more effective than just saying, here's our postcard and it goes out. There is
Sure.
a little bit more of that like classic advertising where you're like the Mad Men approach, like let's get the messaging right. It's not just like, you know, throwing a bunch of paid at the wall and seeing what the conversion rate is. There's a little bit of, like fun to it, honestly, when you're putting together these types of campaigns. So yeah, there's like a huge component to like how you do direct mail to, make a memory or make an impact stand out. But we advise customers to use the data across as many channels as possible, especially if they're already running ads in other channels. Um, because you might hit them on direct mail, they might convert later off an ad, they might pick up the phone and call you. Like there's a lot of ways that customers can come to you. So the more channels, the better, especially if it's cost effective, is
Yeah.
how we've tried to position our product.
Yeah, and a few months ago, I kind of had this duh moment where I realized that injury attorneys, this is all they do. They put their message out there on billboards, on ads, on radio, on websites, on whatever, hurt, injured, call so and so, and
Yep.
they're all over the place. And it's not some big, I mean, it's not some big fancy wording. Like it's pretty direct. And so obviously, if you're going to buy a yacht, you probably don't want, that kind of messaging. It's a little bit different clientele. You're not hurt or injured. You don't need something today. But I do wonder how much you keep saying this word data, and it's something that's really gotten lost, is that we have so much ability to reach people now that we forget that the data really tells us what they want to hear far more than what we think they might want to hear. And so there's a lot of ways to test and to try stuff, and that it's like if you and that's part of Hopkins' thing in his book was that you've got to try. You have back then again limited words, limited space. You have to try to figure out what works, and we kind of just take that for granted. And so, if I had to guess, your more successful customers are serious about the data that they have access to and seeing what works.
Yeah, I mean the more successful customers are the ones that are what you just said. They're trying different initiatives and trying different things. It's kind of like when you I mean, how many times have you heard someone say like, "Oh, I started a Google campaign and I didn't get anything out of it," or "I started a Meta campaign, I didn't get anything out of it." It's kind of just like expect it to work at the first crack, and that's almost never the case. If you're running
Mm,
Meta ads, you got to burn through a lot of creative and a lot of tests in order to find the winners. And even when you find the winners, what other tweaks can you make to improve the performance of it, right? And different seasonality. There's so many factors that go into it. So the ones that are, I would say, like the more successful are bought into like this is a process where, we give you a ton of levers to pull and we're going to do all the fulfillment of it. Um, but really it's like a back and forth model of like how, different tests need to roll out to find the best winners. Um,
oh
and it
yeah,
honestly,
like when we're doing custom newsletters for people, we say the same thing. Like, hey, Oh, sorry, you glitched there on me. I thought you were done. I was just saying that when we write custom newsletters for people, that's what we say. Like, hey, we're writing these newsletters, but the audience's feedback is really what you need more than, this is what we think's best. But what we think's best is just what we think. Like, the audience will resonate or they won't. And if they don't, it doesn't mean it's not working. It means now you know that that didn't work, and so try something different or better. If you get some response, then make it better. And so it's a thing that it's like, we've I think we talk about the overnight success and how it's not real, and we forget how many times. And there's a big push. I'm curious how much this plays into what you guys look at. There's a big push for the personal brand, and I think people take that very seriously if they're trying to do personal branding, and they're afraid that too many messages will get out there, and then people will remember that they said this or that they did this, and it's like, no, the variety will attract the right people, and once you figure out what that right answer is, then you can start to double down on that messaging. But early on, you're just kind of shooting in the wind there.
Yeah, you cut out there for a second, so I didn't get the middle of that question. But I think what you're saying is how do you are you seeing like a means to like just push more messaging out, and is that working? Is that the
Well, I
question?
was I was saying, I wonder how much when you're looking at this. Part of what I was getting at is like today it's big on personal branding, right? Personal brand, personal brand, personal brand.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much that makes people fearful of different messaging because they're afraid it's attached to them instead of a corporation or a company. It's like, oh, the company
Yeah.
said this. Well, it's like, I said this. And so I wonder, but still, you saying it doesn't, it's the same thing. Obviously, it's a person, but the messaging works or it doesn't.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of always that person too. I built a pretty sizable business without ever really using LinkedIn or Twitter or anything. Kind of changed in the last couple of years. I guess maybe I'm on that bandwagon too. Um, and it has helped for sure. Just like honestly, the one of the most fun parts is like doing stuff like this, just meeting new people and having conversations. But I would say like a lot of our customers are not necessarily personally branding themselves in any way. There's like a whole world of people that are offline that are not reading Twitter, like
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Twitter's
that's
a bubble. It's not real life.
yeah. We've definitely like found customers and found a lot of success off of Twitter, but our biggest customers and our biggest cohort of revenue is just like cold outreach sales relationships that we've had for years. Um, so we haven't really like blended the two of like the create your own brand thing yet. I would say most of it is just standard, but I mean that's an interesting thing to think through. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we do have one customer that's pretty um, like he's like an influencer, I guess you can call him, and some of the materials that go out do contain his messaging. But yeah, I mean that's something that I'm learning too. Like I'm pretty active on Twitter now, although it's never been my thing really, but
Hmm.
it's fun. I'm getting more used to it. I think like I have two young kids too, 1 and 3, so whenever I'm on the phone, I just kind of feel like a bad parent. Uh,
Yeah.
so trying not to do that, but at the same time, it does help for sure. Like I've met a lot of interesting people off of just like a really. I started like using Twitter back in. I mean, I've had the account for 12 years, but I really started using it, a few months ago, and it's been an interesting, fun ride.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had it for a long time too, and I used to do large B2B enterprise type stuff, and so I didn't really use it for that. I would use it for sports or whatever interest might be, or politics or news or whatever. And then it's like, okay, once I got out of the B2B enterprise stuff, because my clients weren't on there, they weren't, I wasn't gonna get hired to go do those works from Twitter. I have tried hey, let's talk about what I'm doing now. And it's definitely a different feel. You got to kind of get comfortable with what you're saying, how it resonates, and how that works. And so it's a different dynamic. But you mentioned cold a second ago, and I'm curious because uh, some of my most successful leads have ever come from cold email, and I see a lot of hate around cold email, and I know it's a very crowded space these days, but cold email to me, it's a great way to figure out the message that works because you can try a lot of variations pretty quickly, get the feedback, and then when you get on the call with them, they're going to tell you what they thought the message meant because that's how the call is going to go. So if you said certain words in the cold email, when they get in the call, their expectation is kind of set. And so if you're going to go to ads or messaging or whatever, I think cold is a great way to find clients, especially B2B. B2C not so much, but B2B is a great way to find clients. And I'm curious from y'all's standpoint, how do y'all value that? Because is there a way to pixel some of that data, or is that just like you start with the data that you mentioned that you have and then go out? Like, how do you tackle that problem?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're like users of our own product, right? So we have a cold email stream going out now. We're going to ramp it up too, um, where we have some variances to the messages that go out through a sequence, and it's working. I mean, we're getting replies, we're getting meetings booked, um, and honestly, it's like idiot proof. It's hard to do wrong once it's set up correctly.
Yeah,
Shout out to Neil Hamilton, Enhanced Inbox. He's the one that helped us set it up. I've worked with him. He worked at Benzinga. I've worked with him before. Super smart guy. But yeah, so I mean, we do it for ourselves and it works. And then I think too, everybody always wants to automate everything no matter what. And I think sometimes you really just kind of got to embrace the method of going out and finding new customers if that's what you're trying to do. So I'll
hmm
do a lot of just like opportunistic, like 10, 20, depending on the day. Um, hey, I saw this group. I have a very specific email that I'm going to send this person because I think it actually connects the dots and I'm not just spamming them. And try to form partnerships, try to see if there's opportunities there. And that's worked really well. I mean, I started my agency. At the peak, my agency was doing just under 4 million a year of revenue, which is kind of hard to do for an
yeah, that's
agency.
great.
And all of it, I mean, almost all of it was built on like opportunistic cold outreach and just asking for referrals, asking for intros. So I'm a big believer in it. Obviously, like like every business owner, you just want, like automated distribution and people coming and signing up and lead flow like crazy. But I didn't have that, right? So I was like, had to go engineer it. So I'm a big believer in cold, whether it's, targeted, but like, you know, well done outreach at scale, or if it's something that you're doing specifically on, on the daily, just to like go out there and find new prospects, meet new people. I don't think that's going to die anytime soon. As long as you have something of value and you're not spamming people to death, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're
So
annoying, you're,
how many inboxes are you guys running for y'all's cold outreach?
I don't even know off the top of my head. It's probably like 20. I
20.
don't,
Okay. Yeah, the most and the reason I was asking that because the most I've ever ran was almost 70.
yeah,
Um we're going for 70 and we what we found was for like if we're going after someone who they have a SaaS solution and they're going after B2B. That was really hard. But targeting owners, for M&A is a lot of what we were doing. That was copy was really short. But the reason I was asking about the number of domains is because I'll see people talk about spinning up like three or four out, inboxes and like, oh, this is going to work. It's like, no, 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 no. We had
yeah,
almost 70 or around, I can't remember the exact number, but let's say 70, 70. And we had multiple variations that we were trying out each time, and then we would scrap the ones that didn't work and double down on the ones that did work. And our reply rate was between 4 to 12%, and depending on sometimes it'd be 15 if depending on if it was a really hot industry. But that was all off of just what was working, what wasn't working, and so even the cold email, it's not like you can just turn on cold email and it's going to work. You've got to still go through this process of what copy response, what did they say when they get in the call, did they understand it, and so. I think all of this is because you mentioned automate everything, which is I do a lot of automation work for clients, and so it's like yes, there are things you can automate. Getting people to talk to you, that's just not one of them. You've got that's a lot harder of a process.
yeah. And no, and to be frank too, like I would love to automate as much as possible, but when you're trying to form a relationship with somebody, it's a little
Yeah,
harder to do, like um. So yeah, I mean, I think like firm believer in all things cold email, cold outreach. You just got to do it well, like anything else. Like it's not your first crack at it. If you're doing it all by yourself and not working with somebody that's done it before, it's probably going to go really poorly, right?
hmm
So if you hire somebody or if you know somebody that can help you out, you can skip the line there a little bit. But yeah, cold email is the same. Cold email is the same as Google Ads, the same as Meta, same as Data Shopper. You have to approach it correctly. And your first at bat, hopefully it goes stunningly well, but you might take a couple at bats to figure out the exact approach that you need in order to find, a consistent channel for your business. Like it's
Yeah.
like anything. I mean, cold calling, I mean, literally anything I've ever tried when it relates to generating sales or marketing activity, SEO. I mean, I did a ton of SEO work in my world. For big brands too. For an SEO for like Rocket Mortgage, Moneyline, obviously Benzinga. Um, the first few months of it, or the first even sometimes year of it, is really difficult. So marketing is not an overnight success, although sometimes it might look like it. Even the people that have these big followings, usually they started, years ago to build that audience. When they tweet something out, they can, get a lot of,
Yeah.
customers or accounts, leads, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's always a grind. It's always a work in progress. If it was that easy, I'd probably be done by now.
Yeah, we would be talking. We'd
Yeah,
both be retired. Yeah, well, it's one
yeah,
of those things where it's like, you want to, the beautiful thing about automation is it can let you do more faster, but you still got to
yes,
do it, right? And
yeah,
so history, maybe in 1997, you had to send the emails out, or had to run the ads, or you had to do the stuff, and it's a big laborious process to do that. Well, now you can reduce that time to get more out there for potentially cheaper. I don't know about the ad cost in 97, but you can do it faster, and you can try different variations. You can a lot of stuff, but you still have to do the work. And I think that's where everybody talks about the 80/20 rule. It's like, well, the 80/20 rule still exists. It's just you can automate maybe 80%, depending on what you're doing. You can automate a bunch, but you still got to do that 20%. If you think you can automate that 20%, it's just not real. Not right now. I see people talking about AI influencers and stuff, and you always wonder how real or prevalent that is. But even if it is real, they have mastered a skill that allows them to run that stuff. It's not as if you can just turn it on tomorrow without that skill set, to your point earlier. So you got to have a way to get past some of that stuff. And the automation world is it's interesting because yesterday some guy was talking about the prompts are dead. It's like, man, prompts aren't dead. They might be dead in a few years, but if you're starting out, you got to learn how to prompt. If and you can't go build some custom GPT. And so I'm sure very similar to what you guys see, which is there's a lot of levels to the game, right?
yeah. Actually, one thing I would love to automate now that we're on this topic is the design of mail collateral. The latest ChatGPT release with the images looks like it might get there pretty soon. I would
Oh
love to
yeah,
automate that
I think so.
process. Like
Well,
it,
have you uploaded like a direct mailer to ChatGPT and asked it to evaluate it?
I have not done that. I've asked it to create ones, and it's pretty good. I think this might be like a next month or even like a Q3 thing, if I'm being honest with what's in our roadmap. But um, we want to get started on it. I don't know how quickly we would actually release it, but we want to have the ability for people to come in and say, here's the type that I want. I want a trifold with, this dimension, and I'm a whatever
Right.
company design it for me, because that's the 20% that we have not been able to automate. That's actually kind of a longer process than I would like it to be. And I do see that that could be super powerful for us, because then in the near future, even if you're using our pixel or not, you could come on and prompt whatever design you want. It immediately gets created to your specifications, goes out the door with your targeted ICP, either via our data or via the pixel or both. Um, that will be cool when we get to that point. It's something I'm really looking forward to us automating. Um, yeah, so I think like the next big thing of automation outside of like, I'm sure a lot of stuff that you do for your customers, that we're trying to automate, like like the outbound mail, the sequencing, the follow-ups, et cetera, et cetera. Um, the the capabilities with how the image generation is going on those really kind of like leveled up in the last month. So I'm excited to see how we can use that as a part of our business to streamline that operation.
Well, do you follow Brent from Design Joy on Twitter?
Yeah, yeah. The one man show? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Did you watch the build wars they had about a month ago with him and Lovable?
No, I didn't see that. What
Okay.
was it?
So you're this is more your world, so you can go watch. It's like they don't start till like 45 or an hour in, so you kind of skip ahead. But you can go watch the end product. It's a recorded stream, so you can go watch the end product. And what I found interesting was the way the judges were analyzing the two. Brent was better, but the way that they were judging it, I found to be interesting because for most people, those home service people that you mentioned or whatever, they don't need the level of detail that they were talking about, and Lovable could do. I was like,
Right.
man, you could sell these sites that Lovable just did, all day long to people because it was pretty good. And it's like 45 minutes they did it, they completed it in. So it was pretty quick. And so you're saying this stuff's like, yeah, ChatGPT, but then maybe Lovable can already do some of the stuff already because what they were able to do, and again, it's a speed test, it's not gonna be perfect, but the critique at the end was about how round were the corners and the font size and stuff. And I'm not saying that's not important. I'm just saying if you're selling roofs, the level of detail is not there as it is for yachts.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, it just for us, it needs to fit within a certain dimension that also, corresponds to a certain bleed on a postcard, for example. And then there's like an address block that, fits into the backside of the postcard, again, like in a certain dimension. So there's just like a fairly precise criteria of how that image needs to be laid out so that when it gets printed, it's done well and appropriate and contains all the things like the QR codes, the special image, I'm sorry, the special links to track
Mm,
attribution. I think it's getting there. Honestly, it might even already be there. I have no doubt that it will be there soon enough that we can integrate it into our product.
yeah,
But that I think will help us scale because it removes a honestly what is the biggest like back and forth bottleneck of our product. The other stuff is pretty easy. I mean, you can be up and running in minutes
yeah,
on Data Shopper. The design, unless they come to us with an already formatted design that they've used in the past, um, you know, can design is so subjective that it can take some back and forth. But if you're in there and you're prompting and you're saying, design me something for my country club, we want to send mailers out for my country club. Um, and that, it comes up and they can just select between 10 different choices and it is precise. I can't wait for that. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna
yeah,
be cool too. Like, it'll be a nice nice way to demo the product.
yeah. Well, I
Um,
would check out Lovable because it might can do. I haven't seen the use case for this, but it would surprise me if it could do something like you're referring to right now because it's pretty cool. A lot of the stuff I've seen get spun up or done, it's like okay, yeah. So I haven't seen this use case, so I don't want to say yeah, it can do it, but it would surprise me if it's not there already or will be there soon because
yeah, I'll
it's
definitely check it out. I haven't honestly, I don't know how I'm blind to this, but I have not even heard of Lovable.
well,
Uh,
that's the problem with AI automation stuff. Like everyone, there's all these tools that are coming out all the time, and it's like it's so hard to keep up with everything. And so it's like I was watching something earlier today on some AI guys talking about some tool I haven't heard of it. I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta go look that one up now because there's always it feels like every day there's new tools coming out, and so with the speed that you see this AI automation world coming into it, like the pixel part, how does that play into website SEO, retargeting, direct mailers, all you mentioned, like how does that play the next 5, 10, 15 years if you had to guess?
if I had to guess, but,
It's, and I say when I say guess, I literally mean guess because
yeah, no, if I
you
had
know,
to guess, I think that there's not a lot of time left for, this style of whatever you want to call it, white collar work. That's my
yeah,
guess. I think there's probably like a 5-year window for us to get in and do as much as possible and, provide a wedge for your business because I think a lot of the other stuff is going to be automated. Or there's going to be a lot more like one man businesses like the Design Joy guy where
that's
you
what I
can
do. Yeah, one man. Yeah,
scale and do things a lot faster. So hopefully it's more towards the latter. But honestly, I have no idea. Like, what's kind of funny is I sold my agency in 2022, and my agency was predominantly like a content studio, like
hmm,
SEO articles and paid ads. Like, good timing to get out of that, I would say. Like
oh
AI
yeah,
came in, and all of a sudden, every single thing that we were producing thousands of pieces of content a month for a variety of clients, and that became 95% cheaper overnight.
hmm,
Uh, So, like a lot of those content farm agencies kind of thing, there's obviously like there's a lot more service to ours when we was working with, different financial groups from an SEO perspective, and especially like the performance affiliate side of things with Benzinga, there's much more to it. But the content where we would charge X amount of dollars for a piece of content just became, so much cheaper, and there was so much gray area about like what you could or could not do on Google. So I don't know if you'd really feel comfortable like selling that into a company if you are using AI, and if they get hit by an algo update. There was just a ton of things that changed
Yeah.
in the SEO space, especially like the affiliate SEO space, in such a short amount of time. And that was kind of just like one of the first things. It's getting exponentially better every single release. So I do think that a lot of jobs, or like mid-level jobs, are going to just be eliminated. Um, Maybe that'll be a good thing, and people can like build their own individual businesses, and that'll be fun. Um, but if my intuition says anything, it's probably like there'll be a few that rise to the top, or somebody that's already had a wedge in. That's my guess. Maybe that's a
Yeah.
little bit optimistic.
It's well, and I think yes. I mean yes, because tomorrow, some new Chinese got DeepSeek and Manus, and some new Chinese company could come out and just blow all this stuff out the water, or OpenAI could release something, or Claude, or whatever. You just don't know what's coming tomorrow. So it is truly a guess. I do think that the more, like when I talk to people about it, there's a weird spectrum where there's people who are way more advanced than me, who know more than me, and there's people who don't know hardly anything about it. And so I just think that I struggle with being in the bubble, if you will, how much I project that it will actually just take all these things versus people just won't care. They just won't care enough, and so they're gonna be like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm making money as a roofer, or, just by running bandit signs in yards, and I don't need this stuff. And so I wonder how much that will slow down some of the progress we think might happen.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's still newspapers, there's still magazines. Obviously, it's much less than what it used to be. So maybe it'll be similar, in a similar parallel to that. Um, it's honestly, it's really hard to say. I mean, I have a few friends that are in the medical industry, and they're doctors, and one's a surgeon. He's convinced that he's one of like the top. He's like one of the top surgeons in the country. He's convinced that he's going to be out of a job. Like,
Yeah,
there's just going to be robots performing surgery. I don't know how fast that one will happen versus like replacing graphic design needs, or replacing the need for someone to build a website, especially a simple website.
yeah,
That'll probably come sooner, but I mean, it's interesting to see how all this will play out.
yeah. Well, for your doctor buddy, what I would say is the realization that I've come to is that so much of what we believe in life is what people have told us. And so growing up, it was go to the doctor. And so if I tell people that they can go on, like, I've been through this thing, they think I have MS. We'll see. I don't know. It's a few months out. But, and so I had these x-rays and these scans, and I just uploaded ChatGPT and had it read it and tell me what it said, what it meant, and all this stuff. But some people won't do that because the doctor is who they want to go to. And I'm not
Right.
anti-doctor. I love my doctors. They're great. But I would rather have the access of the database for ChatGPT than I would just my doctor's knowledge. And it's not a criticism, it's just that they're human, they're limited. And so, but society, I don't think, is ready to be told. They haven't been told that yet in mass. And so they're not ready for that kind of, if that's the right way to think about it, they're not ready for that. So I think that the doctors will do all kinds of cool stuff because they can access all these studies and stuff. But,
Yeah, yeah.
but people
Maybe.
are still going to want doctors.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, one way it's changed for me. I hardly ever use Google anymore. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, I talk to ChatGPT all the time. It's
yeah,
open right here
either
somewhere.
ChatGPT or Grok. I guess I'll use Google for like finding a restaurant or like a local business. But
Hmm.
if it has anything to do with, I mean, what was the weather on this date? What was cool that happened on my birthday? I'm
Hmm.
never going to Google anymore.
Yeah,
I wonder how much more fallout that we're not seeing from that too. Like what's being reported or how that's going to change. I know Google made some strides with AI this month too that I haven't really looked into, but I've been seeing some reports.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's one of those things because they used to say, I don't know if this is still the belief, but like Google and Dell and those big companies, they couldn't innovate. They had to go buy companies to kind of get. And it's like that's not really true anymore. If they wanted to, they could have a team just go do this stuff because you can go do stuff now. It's just so much easier. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, you had to go buy some startup or whatever. And I'm not saying that's going to go away. They might, but they can go do stuff. And so they've got a ton of money to play in this pond. And if they have all the data that you've talked about, they know what's coming. They know what people are looking at. So they can actually theoretically fight this battle better than most because they have access to all that. So I don't know where that's going to go. I do wonder because I see stuff, but yeah, the local. I don't know how the local gets taken away. But to your point, I talk to ChatGPT all the time. Perplexity I use for web searches a lot. Have you tried that?
I've tried Perplexity, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know why I fell off from it, but I used it for maybe a couple days, and old habits die hard. I'm mostly using Grok now. Um, I don't even know why.
Grok's good. I do wonder about how much its algorithm or whatever you want to call it is going to be geared towards what people on Twitter are talking about versus something a little bit more broad. And so I've wondered
Yeah.
about that. And now for image generation, man, last year I had it generate some images of King Henry the Eighth, I think it was. It was crazy good, like way better than anything else I could find. But I have wondered how much the Twitter connection is going to impact that because it's going to impact it some. It's going to be great because it has all that data, but if Twitter is biased, no matter how you look at it, right, left, center, doesn't matter. It's going to have all this stuff on there. So I don't know how they're going to balance that out.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? Maybe everyone's just gonna start living outside again and just enjoying the world. That's my yeah. Actually, I have a. I think I tweeted this out the other day. Like, I have a 5-year goal, or however long it takes, 10 years, just eventually just have a landline and get rid of my phone and just like disconnect for a little bit, touch the grass, feel the sun.
Well,
Um,
and we can wrap it up here. I think that's the thing that most people, we don't know what the Windows 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow as far as the technology boom comes. But I think the thing that we all should agree on is that if we're smart about it, it's easier to get that 80% done than ever before. And so we really need to focus on doing that, whether it's retargeting your customers as you guys do, if it's building out automations for your workflow, it doesn't matter. It's so much easier now that you can build. So we've come from the age of the Industrial Revolution, and that's kind of how our society was built. That's what we grew up in. My oldest kid's 17. My youngest should be six. Whoop, be 6 in 2 days. And so her world is going to be a little bit different than his because she's going to grow up closer to this, what we're talking about, where he's still kind of the industrial revolutionary age, is kind of full product of that, but closer to it. And so the next generation, though, they're not going to be nearly as connected to that kind of like, hey, factory job, 40-hour week, 9 to 5. This is what we got to do. That will go away. And so will it be more solos, small companies? I have no idea, but I do think to your point, work-life balance, however you want to phrase that, it's going to be a lot of opportunities for people. And I do. You mentioned the white collar jobs going away. I've seen a bunch of debate about the blue collar, the white collar. If all the if all the white collar jobs go away, they're going to get blue collar jobs. So even if AI doesn't come for the blue collar jobs, which I think it will, the white collar people will come get the blue collar, try to get the blue collar jobs. So like that, I don't buy that that's actually how it's going to play out.
yeah, we'll see. We'll have to do another podcast in 5 years and see if our predictions line up.
Mine will be 100% wrong. So you can bank on that. Which is why I think it's like today you can get caught up in this 5 year thing. What's going to happen? It's fun to think about, but you can get paralyzed by the fear of what's coming and go,
Yeah.
okay, maybe it comes, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? We gotta get this stuff done today, tomorrow. I might be dead in 5 years, so who knows? We don't have to worry about that. So, anyways, okay. Final word from you. We'll link to your Twitter profile. We'll link to datashopper.com. Anything else that you wanted to mention before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I appreciate this. Is fun. But yeah, if you're interested in anything retargeting, feel free to check us out. Just go to datashopper.com, book a demo. Usually me, Donnie, or Matt that'll hop on the demo with you, or Lindsay. So check us out. We're always around. We're growing. We're excited. hopefully we don't get replaced by AI in the next 5 years. I don't think we will. But yeah, it's been a fun ride so far. We're looking to, I mean, like really blow it out of the water. We'll see how well we hit our goals. But yeah, thanks, Ryan. This was awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk hopefully before 5 years. So,
Yeah, for sure.